There are a couple of ways to go with this. I'm not optimistic. I assume blowback, because if I ever even say the word Trump, I get blowback. Too bad. Like every semi-political discussion, I, of course, have to explain my ideology because some of you refuse to hear it, okay? You just refuse it. I've only been doing this 20-something years, and I've been pretty clear and pretty consistent. But I'll do this to get it out of the way. I have a very libertarian bent by most definitions. I despise politics because I despise how we manage politicians, because it's a career. It's everything we're not supposed to be about. It's a career. I despise it. It's a self-centered, wealth-generating career. I despise authoritarians. I kind of like a little bit of anarchy. I do. I like consumers to make choices. I like people to spend their money. I like to be left alone. I don't need some self-centered, hypocritical, holier-than-thou jackass at the Capitol to talk to me about sexuality. Not an issue for you. I despise authoritarians. It's un-American in every single way. And to be honest with you, that's mostly Donald Trump's appeal. He has no ideology. He's a prisoner of the audience. But his appeal to the audience is authoritarian. Not completely, but it's that sort of ballpark. The ideology of MAGA supporters is pretty much this. And I'm saying this so you won't work hard to convince me otherwise, because there's an interesting sort of sports angle to all this. So I'm just trying to say this so you just won't work hard at trying to tell me otherwise. And that is two things. I'll take things back to the way they used to be. People love that. Yeah, the old days. Okay, that's appeal number one. That, by the way, is economic suicide. It is. It's very nationalistic, big government, authoritarian appeal. That's what the appeal is. My way to a lot of people is do it my way. Sounds cool to a lot of people. You don't like different. You don't like a little anarchy. You don't like different people. So it's a popular appeal. That is the appeal. I acknowledge that. I don't agree with that ideology. I despise it. There. Don't try to convince me otherwise. Now, connecting the dots with Mark Cuban is understandable. And yes, I transferred from Trump to Cuban for good reason. He sold his shares. It's just come out. Mark Cuban has sold his shares. I don't know how he pulled this off, but that's why he's worth billions. He sold controlling interest in the Dallas Mavericks for, I believe, $3 billion on a franchise he spent, what was it, $200 million or something? But somehow he's still got controlling interest. Okay. He's stepping away, he says now, from Shark Tank. To be honest, he's had an exploratory run for president. I've talked about it before. It came up a few years ago. The Democrats have an old man problem, a serious old man problem. Republicans have a Trump problem. It makes sense on the front end, okay? It would make sense that there's an opportunity, whether it's Mark Cuban or someone else. I mean, just numerically, you look at our map, you look at most normal non-extremists, people with jobs and lives, who don't care about your sexuality. I mean, and you would think, God, there's a big opportunity here. So it all kind of makes sense. It does. It makes numerical sense. It makes common sense to most people. To many of us, I didn't know anything about Trump early on. God knows I learned, being yelled at every day. Mark Cuban has had the appeal that Trump had early on. That is an outsider, which I get. Perfectly reasonable to like that. A successful business person. No doubt he's done that. Trump, no. Don't argue that. No, he's not. And understanding the importance of entertainment value. Mark Cuban very much gets that. So he's all those things. He's like a better version of Trump. If you like those things about Trump, you don't. That's not your real appeal, I know. But, if that kind of concept works, it works even better with Mark Cuban. All those things. Outsider, real real business person. I mean, really has made the money, gets it. An innovator, a disruptor who loves disruption. That's healthy, America. Disruption is always healthy. Old ways are not healthy. Disruption is always healthy. And he's got some entertainment value. So it's, in a lot of ways, he's what a lot of people thought Trump might be. He's that. So he's a guy who did have an exploratory committee, whatever that means, floating the idea, and I think for pretty good reason, why not me? Along the way, Trump is hijacked by rednecks because he's a prisoner of the audience. That's all he is, a prisoner of the audience. So the rednecks got him. Cuban has all this stuff. I mean, there is, if you like those things, there is that appeal. It works. So yes, him running would not only be viable, I would argue it's healthy. Now, I'm, of course, a person who thinks that more disruption is better, more candidates is better, more ideology is better, more real debate is better, not just hate all the time. It would all be healthy. So the idea that as of today, people are connecting the dots that Mark Cuban would be running, it makes sense. The Democrats have an old man eating soup problem, and the Republicans have that guy's a nut job problem. It makes sense. It does. It made sense a few years ago. I'm trying to remember the exact year that I talked about this when it came out, that he had put together exploratory committee, that he was looking into it. It was this Colin Cowherd, who I like his podcast. I do. I'm interested in football stuff. I'm interested in hating politics. I like to hate politics. I hate it. It's not real. It's fake. And economics, so it appeals to me. That's my area of interest. I get where he's going with this. I thought this was fairly well thought out.
So my first take is recent polling indicates Biden is not a viable candidate.
Oh, my goodness.
And Mark Cuban is, to me, a centrist, a left-leaning centrist, and has an interest in it. There's no reason in 1 week to make these moves. My guess is it signals a political upheaval in the Democratic Party, and Cuban could become a leading candidate with the vice president being selected by the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Okay, I want to say those dots are connected. I think I just laid it out for you. Those dots are connected pretty well. One old dude's drinking soup, eating soup. What do we do with soup? I never know what to do with soup. Soup means, in Jeff's mind, you're really, really old. I think I think a lot of people would want this. I think you should want it. I think if you're a non-extremist, you should want it. I think if you have a pulse, you should want it. He won't run. I don't think so. Here's why. Here's where we really are. Look, you can think of Mark Cuban as a hothead. You can think of Mark Cuban as, an egomaniac. You can think of those things very clearly. I interviewed Howard Schultz. I don't know when that was, a couple years, I don't know when it was, who also was exploring the idea of running. And if you just look at if you look at the political landscape of today, and you're a normal person with a real life who says, man, pave the roads, talk to me before we go to war, and let's debate taxes. If you're that person with a real life, real functioning life, you don't need any more than that kind of thing, then these people would appeal to you. And so Howard Schultz, I interviewed him and listened to him. And then finally he said, after everything he said, which made perfect sense to a lot of people, and I think it's the very reason you're hearing this stuff about Mark Cuban now. Yeah, I know a rich guy, but only a rich person will be able to have the ability to sort of put together a committee to study this stuff. In the end, he said, I'm out. I can't win. They'll eat me alive. The extremists will eat me alive. The system is impossible to penetrate. Now, we're not talking about losers here. We're talking about smart people, Mark Cuban and Howard Schultz. We're not talking about the only people who can get in politics are disgusting people. They're the only ones crazy enough to get in there. They don't give a crap about their family. The decent people say, I'm out, man. I looked into it. No way am I doing that. No way. I'm not getting in there. That's a dumpster fire. Those people are trash. Howard Schultz is out, and I think Mark Cuban will be out. No way. Our system, let me say it this way, in my opinion, let's disagree. Again, to a lot of you, your litmus test on politics is maybe one or two things. But for most people, it is kind of generalized. And how does this feel? See if you agree with this. He or someone like him, male or female, tech or not tech, I don't care. Reasonable people with reasonable ideas that appeal to most of you, that could debate with you about the merits of a flat tax or not a flat tax, the merits of Ukraine or not Ukraine. I mean, just the merits of real policy, of real substance for a change. They look at this. I think of my conversation with Howard Schultz, and he said, I wouldn't win. That system is so bad and so set up and rigged. No, I'm not going there, man. I think Mark Cuban's going to say the same thing. I think he said it a couple years ago when I think he really, really was. The Democrats probably came to him and said, please, we got to get some help. The Democrats, I think Colin Cowherd's probably right. The Democrats have said, oh my gosh, you can breathe. You have a pulse. You can finish a sentence. Please get in. And I do think ego and all that stuff probably brings these guys, I'll use Howard Schultz and Mark Cuban as the examples, I think it brings them to the table. And they look at it and say, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I can make a difference. Most people, we're on the same page. These people that I use Howard Schultz as an example. He said, he didn't talk about left-leaning issues. He talked about stuff that most of you would be perfectly fine with. And when they get right there, they look in there and they see that industry, they see a rigged system, and they just go, I'm out. And I think Mark Cuban, within however many times it comes up, because I think it's going to come up a lot over the next 24 hours, I think he's going to say, there is no way I'm putting my family through that. And I wouldn't blame any normal family person for saying, I'm not going into that trash. No way. I might want to go in there myself. I can maybe handle it, but I cannot ruin if you care about your own family, you would never go into politics. No way. It makes the cartels look ethical. It's so disgusting. I'd love for a bunch of people to jump in the race. You should want the same. You should want disruption. You should not want any sort of model where it's a duopoly. I don't care if it's toothpaste or presidential candidates. You shouldn't want that. You should want Mark Cuban and 12 other people in. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, look, when you think about this, Trump, the election is now this. This is where we are. This is why most people just go about their lives and think, oh, screw it. I'm out, man. There's nothing here for me. It's either Trump or not Trump. That's the vote. There. Everyone else has been run off. Common sense would tell you someone other than those two 80-somethings would be in the race, but the reason is nobody normal under the age of 80 wants to run because they can't win. It's a system of, I was about to say something very terrible. I was about to use the term, no. It is a system of sucking your own exhaust fumes. The people that are in it are all in the industry of politics to get wealthy. And so these people get in there and they're like the cartels. You come and try to take my monopoly away, I'll cut your head off. I'll ruin your family. So what you get is the extremes. The extreme Trump show up and the extreme not Trump shows up. And these other people like Mark Cuban are going to say, no way, man, I'm getting out. That's dirty. No way. We need Mark Cuban to run. Just prepare yourself for people to connect the dots. Cuban might be doing it himself. He did it a few years ago and tried to pretend that he didn't. Great. It'd be neat. It'd be healthy. But we need 6 or 8 different people to run with different ideology, like the real ideology, like some real substance. But they won't because they can't win. Neither can Mark Cuban. And I'm guessing for everyone, and I think Colin Cowherd's take on this is not far off. I said the exact same thing a few years ago. It makes sense. It makes sense to all of you right now. Anybody but those two old guys, right? Yeah, except think about the people, someone like Mark Cuban or anyone that cares about their family. They can't go there. They just can't. No decent human can go anywhere near that industry. That's how bad it is. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope decent people get in, and a bunch of people get in and say, I'm only here for the short term. I'm not going to make a career out of it, because you should hate career politicians. That's the reason why it sucks. Any one of us got in the business, we'd do it too. We would find a way to increase our own net worth by 20%. We'd cut off as many heads as we could. We'd keep the job forever. So you should want all these people to jump in. They won't. I'm just hopeful that Mark Cuban makes a big deal out of why he won't run. I know that sounds weird, because I think he's going to have to say more talk show hosts and more people connect the dots, and he's going to be forced to say, I'm not in. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. But my hope is he then uses his skill set, his edge, his intelligence, his snarkiness to give everyone the lecture I'm trying to give, and that is, hey, look, I'm not running, guys, and let me tell you why. I got a family I care about, and the people in that industry are trash. And they're trash because it's your fault, America. Look at the trash you've done. You extremists, you let the extremists take over. And now look, I wish he would lecture us all. I wish he would embarrass us all for the reasons why he doesn't run. I'd love for him to run, but if he doesn't, I hope he lectures us on how trashy we are for what we've let happen. That might be the healthiest thing of all. I'm not running. I want to tell all of you why I'm not running, and then I hope he lays it out. I said the same thing to Howard Schultz, but he doesn't really have that edge in him like Cuban does. I think Cuban has got the guts, and he's fearless and made enough money, real money, not the fake kind, what Trump does, that he might take the opportunity. I'd love to do it and say, hey, lecture the world on why you won't run. Go ahead, say it. Say it. I think that might be the healthiest thing that comes out of him not running, even though I think the next 24 hours, because of what he's done with the Mavericks and Shark Tank and these committees he's put together, the research, I think people are going to talk about it a lot. So I think he's going to be forced to say he's not going to do it and why.